Oh, we should put some deodorant on. We usually don't take all our clothes off. And you're probably like, what do you mean? I mean, we just sleep in the same stuff that we wear during the day. We just take off a couple of layers, typically. So we don't usually get down to the armpits. Anyway, so we're doing a get ready with me right now because I wanted to talk to you about having finished reading the second to last chapter of the book. Ooh, gotta hurry up, I'm cold. Alright, so it usually takes me a while to get up, but then if I have a good conversation, if I see something interesting or something that annoys me, or if, as this morning, I was reading and that lit me. Okay, anyway, so we're putting on here. I have to talk through this, right? Climate Smart, maybe that's the brand. Some leggings, pretty cute. Oh, shit. Actually, the other plan before I came up with doing the get ready with me, the other plan was that we were going to, oh, I should be doing a voiceover. All right, well, this is my first one. um, so the other plan was to make a video declaration of love and a request for partnership to David McRaney. You know what? Okay, while I do the rest of my getting ready, we'll do a voiceover of me reading from pages 285 to 288 from How Minds Change, David McRaney. Go. In his book, The Day the Universe Changed, science historian James Burke wrote, "We are what we know, and when the body of knowledge changes, so do we." Throughout our history, evolving moral values, the sequential impact of discovery, increasing contact between nations and groups, surprising innovations, and the accelerating rate of invention have all continuously and relentlessly updated the beliefs and attitudes populating the models we have used to define reality itself. As individuals and as entire cultures, we move from paradigm to paradigm, models that explain reality for as long as we can hold on to them. Because of this, Burke told me, at any given time we're in a box which defines the world and tells us what it is. These definitions constrain what we think and also what we think we can think. Before Copernicus, the heliocentric model was inconceivable. The Earth was the center of the cosmos. When Copernicus produced evidence this was incorrect, at first it seemed like error, and so it went into abeyance. To resolve the problems, a new, better model was necessary, and that meant the old model would have to go. That was a real mess, said Burke, because if the Earth wasn't the center of everything, then it wasn't the center of God's attention. And if we weren't the center of God's attention, help! In the 1990s, Americans were not only opposed to same-sex marriage, but the very idea of homosexuality. Today, that attitude for most people is as ridiculous as the belief that geese grow on trees. We've left a trail of dozens of discarded models of reality, shared beliefs, moral high grounds, and superseded scientific theories that were each once the final word. By today's standards, we were wrong, and we were not only blind to our wrongness, we believed we were right. Being wrong, we think, is always a thing of the past. Today we think, and will continue to think, we have finally arrived at certainty. Every era, every culture, believed it knew the truth, until it realized it didn't. Then when the truth changed, the culture changed with it. People can seem myopic and perpetually ignorant, but I prefer to see how marvelous we are at changing our minds in big ways. The fact that you don't believe geese grow on trees, or that you do believe that the earth goes around the sun, is a fact that shows our models of reality, our knowledge, beliefs, and the attitudes they support are fungible. Most shocks are absorbed. Most cascades never escape their local clusters. Yet every stable system is punctuated by random, routine, global cascades that seem so sudden and unexpected that we pick them apart in retrospect and try to pin their sources on amazing, incredible, visionary people or world-shaking, life-changing, essential inventions instead of the real cause. Those occasions when the excitability of the nodes was just right, the density of the connections was all lined up, and a shock that on any other day would go nowhere ends up going everywhere. was thinking about skipping, I complain often on my channel about how we explain any instance of irrationality. It's because, like, we wanted something else rather than just our interpretive automatic instinct is to reject a certain idea. So, continuing, Duncan Watts told me that as far as mainstream thinking is concerned, most people strongly reject the notion of randomness. They'd rather, believe the world turned out the way it did because that's the way it was supposed to turn out. We don't want to learn it because we just don't like, the lesson, he said. This is something I struggle with because I think it is debilitating, really, this insistence on being able to tell a good story about things. It is deeply ingrained, but I think it is very misleading. I told him I would try to change people's minds by reseeding the network. Who knows? Maybe it will take this time. Which is the point. Persistence plus luck is what changes minds, not genius. The ideas that change the world are the ones in the heads of people who refuse to give up. Skipping ahead to the second last paragraph of this social change chapter. The system must become vulnerable. When it is, with so many people banging away, it is inevitable that someone will start the cascade that changes everything. But that someone isn't preordained. You need no special privilege to start striking at the status quo, because no one is in control. What you are in control of is whether or not you stop striking. And if the change you want to make is big, you may need to strike all your life. All throughout the struggle for racial equality in America, people who struck at the status quo had to pass their hammer down to fresh arms. Because once that struggle began, there was always someone hard at work looking for the vulnerable cluster. The cascades that led to change weren't constant, but they were inevitable. The key is to never put that hammer down. The people who change the world are the people who persist. People like David Flesher, who has overseen an effort to knock on more than 13,000 doors, and he is still knocking. Often, but not every time, a knock leads to a change. He is sure of this, and the research backs him up. Maybe not this knock, but eventually that rapping on the door will shatter the status quo and change everything. All right, cool. Hopefully I finished reading the chapter by now. So here's, I actually don't, I'm hoping that I'm just going to remember with you here. David McRaney. Dear David McRaney, you've written an awesome book here. You've written a few awesome books. Big fan here. And there are a lot of things that we could set our sights on, a lot of walls we could against. Here's what I propose. Critical recognition is the most important wall that we need to, okay? Or what's the metaphor he was using? Taking a hammer to what? Or whatting a what? Banging away at it. Anyway, I don't know whether it was a wall or what, sorry. Here's my question. Here's why I say that critical recognition is the most important thing. Critical recognition is knowing what the thinking machine is. It's the foundation to any possibility of quote unquote critical thinking. First, you have to know what you're starting with, what this thing is that is sending out these words, interpreting this world. And it's extremely hard. Well, I don't really know. I haven't tried your techniques. I haven't tried the techniques in here, but it's not easy. You can't walk up to someone and tell them they're a brain, and they go,
Oh, okay. Ah, that explains it. Wait, so then all my interpretive instincts about this, that, and the other, could that have just been pre-installed? Could I not actually be, is it possible I'm not actually following the evidence, and then I'm just following sort of my pre-installed by evolution instinct that's not at all justified or a good imitation of reason in this case?
on page 286 in the reading, he had talked about some of the things that we've made progress from as a species. Some of the things that the species sort of collectively believed to be true, and then came to sort of to become collectively compelled by the evidence that the thing was not true, such as the geese and all that. Okay, and that's great. But have you noticed, you have, that humans, when they're born, even the things that we know when they are born, they don't necessarily accept all of those things. Sometimes a human can be born in the 21st century and go,
Yo, why are you guys saying the sun doesn't revolve around the earth? Yo, you guys are saying the sun is a sphere, but I'm looking at it, and no, it is not.
so how come that keeps happening? Well, obviously, because we're humans and we have pre-installed things, right? And we have a priori sort of concepts, interpretive mechanisms, knowledge almost, and some of that stuff is wrong. And so the culture can advance all it wants to, but you're continuously having people born into it that are just running the pre-programmed things and having no reason to assimilate, no, to accommodate, no reason to accommodate the new information. They just assimilate into themselves. And why? Because there is an inherent trust in what was pre-programmed. When I have conversations with people about things that to me are obviously not true, such as a soul or heaven or whatever, they keep printing the same thing at me, which is that
No, that seems true to me. No, that feels true to me. No, there must be that. No, of course there is that, blah, blah.
and I want to just grab them and say, yeah, but you just keep printing this command, this pre-programmed commitment or predisposition to commitment to that idea. All humans are born sort of spiritual. All humans are born predisposed to fifth man syndrome. All humans are born ready to connect with nature. We all have a default mode network, but are also able to not have as much activity there and feel like we exist everywhere. Okay. All humans have the interpretive mechanisms that led to all religious beliefs. And then without any shame, they just keep running those. So if we can change people's mind about what the brain is. Sorry, the whole getting ready with me thing really screwed up. Anyway, the point, fuck. I shouldn't have stopped there. Okay, hold on. See, David, you're the writer. Okay. I'm just saying, when humans are born, they don't download the latest information. You sort of do, right? You learn from your parents in the school and so on. But at the same time, there's going to be those primitive interpretive mechanisms, all these things, and I'm not going to use the word biases and fallacies, but that's what you're familiar with. But all of these unadapted or maladapted mechanisms are going to run. And then what happens is you've got someone like my friend here who was raised religious, and because there's another thing I want to talk about. But anyway, was raised religious and rejects all of that, says all that's bullshit, man-made bullshit. But then what does he end up falling back on? What seems to be true from his experiences and from his interpretive mechanism, that we are souls, that we go into some other dimension or some heaven, blah, blah, that the pyramids couldn't have possibly been built by humans, that humans were put here by aliens. Those things, just like religion, they sound really good to a human's interpretive mechanisms. I mean, not a human that's been taught, oh, those things are silly, or that's been told to label those things as silly. But just like naturally, if you're just like, oh yeah, those pyramids, how could they have that couldn't have been humans. Okay, yeah. It's working. It works as an explanation. Now, if we could get him to go, wait a minute, the things that seem true to you, you're saying all the things that you're believing are things that like every human has it in them to believe. It's like everybody's instinct to believe in magic and all this other stuff. So unless you're giving to me evidence, you're not giving either of us anything. I wish that he would understand that. That is compulsion, or how true it feels, isn't necessarily an. Oh gosh, I'm really lost here. I'm also worried about. I don't really know how good his English is. Maybe. So before we try to change anybody's mind on anything, we have to know that even if we change the culture, new humans will be born with the same default stuff from hundreds of thousands of years ago, the same default tendencies. And what we need is to break down that belief that those default tendencies are true and reliable. Then, if that's the first thing that we address with every human that enters the world, hey, so you're coming in here with a whole bunch of prepackaged stuff, and you're going to respond to your environment in a certain way according to that prepackaged stuff. Stuff is going to seem true or good or bad, blah, blah, all based on that prepackaged stuff. But some of that prepackaged stuff is wrong. So no matter how compelled you feel, how obviously true something is, that's just an evolved interpretive mechanism screaming that truth. Or loving it. Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, look, here's I messed up this ode to David McRaney, and this is why, you know what? Leo said I should write email to him. I already wrote an email to Daniel Kahneman. He didn't respond. I haven't written to David McRaney. Well, wasn't as excited about him as I have been this year, but also I didn't want to mess it up. I want to say one more thing that I think you'll appreciate if you've taken the time to watch this and try to follow. I mean, not that it's even difficult to follow. Gosh, I'm digging myself deeper. I'm not saying anything that you don't almost already know. The other thing is, one thing I wanted to say that was really cool that from your book. So I've mentioned my friend Fred here. Fred's 60 years old. He laughs at religions, thinks they're absolute jokes of things, don't make any sense. He'll compare them to the things that they assert to what the scientific community has found. But yes, he is the same guy. Pyramids were built by aliens. Humans were put here by aliens. The soul, that brain is the motor for the soul. But no matter what happens to the brain, the soul stays intact as it is. And that's yourself, your personality, blah, blah. And then it goes and maybe rejoins Brahma. He didn't know what Brahma was, but he said that it rejoins some universal soul sort of thing, or rejoins the ether or something like that. And so I've been wondering, of course, I haven't been surprised because, I've gotten to know humans, but I have been curious. How can he talk about religion and science like that in some kind, or when we're talking about religion, he's got all this animosity towards the figments of our imagination and all of this fidelity to science. And then we'll have a conversation about some other thing. And all he's talking about is the things that he's imagined and how true they are because he's imagined them and he's experienced them, quote unquote. And he'll sometimes say science has proven that the pyramids weren't built by humans, they were built by and and then yesterday he told me a story that he had alluded to in the past about when he cut tie when for him the adult he cut off, I don't remember, he was in French, but he severed his ties to the adults. He was 13 and he was like, fuck the adults. And what happened is he didn't want to ever wear a tie in life. He didn't want to do communion. He won through something, some sum of money. And he wanted to use that sum of money to get a little scooter, a little motor scooter thing. And instead, they used that money to buy him a suit for his communion. And this story was about to be how this is the day he was like, I'm done with adults. And he's 61 now, so I don't know. Anyway, and ever since, he's been done with adults. So basically, he goes up in front of everybody and he pours candle wax onto the suit. Red candle wax ruins the suit in front of everybody because he was furious that he wanted a scooter. He wanted to be able to move around. They bought him a fucking suit, even though he never wanted to wear a tie. And he was desperate for this scooter and for his fucking communion. And so here's what he says at the end of the story. And that was the day it was done for me, adults in religion. And I go, oh. And it was such a beautiful moment having read your book, How Minds Change. Well, I haven't read Coda yet. I'm excited. By the way, in a few days, my friend Leo and I are going to be discussing the book, and that'll be published. Anyway, so, and then it made sense. You never walked away from religion because, like, the God's story sort of didn't add up with the information like we've learned about the world, or that you have some sort of skepticism about things that are imagined without being demonstrated. He could have easily been a priest. So anyway, so that's really cool. All right, looking forward to your response, David. Brother, I'm knocking, and I hear you. I hear that I gotta just keep. I can't clock out at 60. Like I got you. Or I can just, pass it on. Leo can be knocking as well. But anyway, let's knock together. So, hit me up, bro.